Baseball fans, hello and welcome to the first ever, of course, it's a big day for the IBL, the IBL On Deck. I'm Spencer Tangway, joined by the Majors crew, Dylan Baker and Noah Smith. And before we get right into it, we have to kind of step back and pause here for a second as we mourn the loss of Bob Schnurr, an IBL player back in 1978, was a member of the Waterloo Tigers, of course, a third baseman and a catcher, lost his life after a 10-year battle with cancer. The IBL community mourns the loss of Bob Schnurr. We'll pause for a moment of silence to pay our respects to the Schnurr family. Thank you. A tough day, of course, obviously, for the IBL and the Schnurr family, but a bright day, of course, for the future of the IBL as we bring you IBL on deck. And Dylan and Noah join me today. And guys, obviously an exciting day as we've been talking about this for a while, something that we can do together as a league to bring highlights, bring stories, and bring players on and talk about the great league, the Intercounty Baseball League.
Yeah, we've been talking about this one for a while. We want to unite fans in this time and in the future as well to bring highlights of games during the weeks of the Intercounty Baseball League season when we do return to baseball play. And as you mentioned, Spencer, it's an exciting day for the league, but also a grim one at that as we mourn the loss of Mr. Schnurr. But we are excited to see what the future holds for IBL on deck and the league in general.
And Noah, just quickly, your thoughts on what this could actually bring for the players, more so on if we're going to recruit players, they want to see highlights, stuff like this. Only a growing point for the IBL, of course.
Absolutely. I think Dylan touched on it very well there. We're in a time right now where we're seeing a lot of these, these Zoom conference calls and stuff like that. And we're trying to get involved in that as well. But I think as soon as baseball does come back, this is going to be a great way for us to showcase the league through highlights and other stories around the league weekly. And I think this is just going to be fantastic for us.
So how it'll work, it'll be a bi-weekly show for now. We'll bring players on, a couple of guests joining us today. We'll get to the commissioner, John Kastner, in just a minute. And Justin Gideon from the Hamilton Cardinals will join us as well. And as I say hello, I look at the comments. Mike Carswell, the #1 Royal fan, is joining us to view today's opening edition of the IBL on deck. But let's get going. We'll jump right into it, I guess, and we'll bring on John Kastner, the IBL commissioner, to say a couple of words. And John, obviously we were talking behind the camera way before we started the conference call and our IBL on deck. You mentioned you played with Bob Schnurr, and today a tough day for the IBL as he lost his life to cancer.
Yeah, Bobby Schnurr is, one of that great Waterloo sports families. I mean, I think he had 5 or 6 brothers who were all great athletes, all involved in sports. Bob Schnurr was the exact same age as I was. I think we played minor ball against each other as well. And so that was a great family. Bobby, a highly skilled guy, and like every member of his family, highly competitive and absolutely loved the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's tough to see that Bob passed away today after his long battle with cancer. Moving on to questions that have been surrounding the league from fans for a while. The expansion of the Intercounty Baseball League. Have you guys explored potential destinations, good landing spots for an expansion team in the IBL?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, that was one of the priorities when I became commissioner a few years ago. We were to look at potential sites. I can tell you, and this is the first time we've announced this publicly, but we do have an application into the IBL for a team in 2021. It's still in confidence, so I can't tell you the location, but it's gone through our executive committee, and our executive committee will be making a recommendation to the league, to the 8 teams, that we accept this team for 2021. So that'll be a big day for the IBL, and we hope to announce that around the 1st of June.
John, just to kind of stay on that topic a little bit with expansion, you mentioned it was one of the things that you were really looking forward to when you became commissioner. What do you see as the ideal number of teams in the Intercounty Baseball League?
Well, this team will give us 9, and as soon as if we approve this team and we have 9, my immediate attention now will shift to getting 10. And because of the footprint of the IBL and the fact that it is a bit of a working man's league and lots of people work till 4 or 5 o'clock and then try and play a weekday game, I'd really like to see 2 5-team divisions, an East Division and a West Division, and sort of stop those, or limit those super long trips, Barrie to London, and those sorts of trips that are a little bit problematic. So ideally for me would be 10 teams, 5 in the East, 5 in the West, 4 in each division make the playoffs, and to me that seems like a really good number.
John, I know Dylan and Noah have a couple more questions for you, but I just got a fan question from Zach Husband. A lighter question for you. He asked, will there be a Bat Boy of the Year award this year going out just when we play baseball? Bat Boy of the Year. Can you see that happening in 2020?
Well, what a great idea. We're always looking for sponsorships idea. Rawlings is one of our great sponsors and one of our great supporters. I think that's a great fit for Rawlings. The Rawlings that supplies our bats could absolutely give a Bat Boy of the Year award. I could see that. Mark that down.
Fantastic.
That should be a great award, John. And another quick question on expansion. What do you think 2 more expansion teams will bring to the popularity of the league?
Well, the 2 things. I think our reputation as a baseball league in Southern Ontario is excellent. And I think as a person who's watched this league since I was 17, 18, played in it briefly in 79, and then covered the league as 20 years as a sports writer, and then now back as commissioner. I can tell you that the quality of the IBL has never been better than it is right now. The number of pro players, college players, the quality of play is great. And I think that adding more teams does a couple of things. One, it exposes the IBL to other parts of the province. It exposes the IBL to recruiting, as I say, fishing out of different ponds. So you're now drawing players out of different parts of the province, and you've got the ability to have excellent players who normally wouldn't be in the league because they don't live close to one of the current teams. So I think that that's one of the real advantages. And then for provincial-wide sponsorship and support, that enables us, to go after some of those bigger sponsors because we do have more of a provincial footprint.
John, moving on a little bit to kind of what we're doing here today, how important is it for you and important for the IBL community to start getting a little bit more on the media side of things? Of course, there was a few teams doing the live streams last year. There's us now with the first ever episode of IBL On Deck. How important is this going forward in terms of the recruiting and really just solidifying the IBL as the league in Ontario?
Well, I think there's a number of real values in it. One is I spent 33 years in the newspaper industry, and I can tell you that, much to my chagrin, traditional media is not what it once was. And there's no question about that. Even people in the industry will tell you that. The other thing the IBL needs to do is, like every sport, we need to attract that younger demographic who's interested in baseball. Social media, platforms like YouTube, this sort of stuff is a real good avenue for us to appeal to that younger demographic, which is critical to us. The other thing is there are a lot of leagues in North America, and the IBL is unique. It's probably the best senior league in Canada, and a little bit of exposure like this where a player in another part of the country or in the United States tunes in, watches this, said, you know what, there's a lot of good things going on in the IBL, and platforms like this become a tool for us in a number of ways.
John, let me just quickly try to catch everyone up to date, I guess, in case they don't know if they're just joining us. Can you just give a quick update on the 2020 season and how we look going forward as of right now?
Yeah, so out of the 8 teams in the league, 5 have committed to try and have some sort of season. So I think we all know who that is, but it's Welland, it's Hamilton, it's London, it's Toronto, and it's Guelph. Those are the 5 teams that are committed. So next week, we will have a call amongst those 5 teams where we sort of sketch out what the season might look like. With the borders closed to the United States, are we going to play a season, for example, without imports? With restricted access across the country, are we going to play a season where we don't have players from other provinces on teams either? How long will the season be? If you have a 20-game season, that means that you've got each team has 4 opponents, so 5 games each. Is that a good number? Those sorts of things we're going to hash out. Me personally, some days I'm very optimistic that we're going to play. You're around today and you're starting to see people out, and whether it be garden centers or golf courses are opening next week, and you get the sense that an outdoor sport may be in that next phase sort of thing. So in my mind, I've sort of got penciled in Canada Day. And, that's very optimistic, but hopeful. No data to support that, but as Canadians, we sort of pick a day on the calendar. And I imagine, a Canada Day game at Labatt Park and, great big, good crowd with all sorts of measures in place, quite likely. But really moving goalposts for us until Doug Ford and ministers of health, medical officers of health decide, all we can do is prepare. And that's really what we're going to do, I would say, in the next 10 days. Now that things are loosening up, I think it's a good time for us to start to sketch out in pencil what the season might look like.
Now, John, for you, what is an ideal season at this point? Obviously, this is not a normal year. We can't have the 36-game regular season with 8 teams. What do you think we can do that would be an optimal season beginning July 1st, as you mentioned?
Yeah, so if you look at July 1st, and Herb Morrell, who's the scheduler of the league, we've gone through a number of scenarios. But we talk about 18 to 20 games. If you go from July 1st to August 31st, you have 9 weekends. So you talk about 3 games a week. So you've got 3 games a week. That's over 9 weeks. That gets you to 25 games, 27 games. If we back up a little bit and we finish by the end of August and we have a quick playoffs, in the first 10 days of September, that's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking we could have something between 16 and 20 games, regular season games, and then maybe the first round, 4 teams make the playoffs, for example, and the first round's the best of 3 and the finals the best of 5, and you're done by the second weekend of September.
Now, John, other leagues around the world have thrown around the idea of kind of just playing an exhibition-type schedule without a league playoff. Is that something that's on the table for the IBL, depending on how long this goes, just to get baseball in this summer?
For sure. I mean, I would say right now at this point, Noah, I don't think there's anything that's off the table. I think that because of the situation is so fluid, we may start the 10th of July. I think we've got to be really nimble in order to get any sort of season in at all. I can tell you that me personally and the 5 teams who've committed, they want to play some sort of season. If we get less than 15 games, now it starts to get, is it worth players to get warmed up in 10 days and, some sort of training camp and all that sort of stuff. But still, I can tell you there's a real commitment among myself and the 5 teams who have sort of put their hand in the middle to have some sort of season. The 3 teams that decided not to play, completely different situations, and I completely understand them, issues with the municipalities and so on, where it just didn't seem feasible for them. But that said, I think that depending when we start, and I've said this all along, and I've said it publicly, if one of those 3 teams came to us and said, you guys are going to go, you're going to try and play, and we'd like to reconsider, we'd like to put our hat back in, absolutely. I think I'm certain we'd welcome that, to have another team in as well. No data to support that. Nobody's reached out and said, hey, if you get going, we'd be interested. But the situation is changing so quickly in Canada, globally, that I don't think you can rule anything out or say, this is exactly what's going to happen, or that's not going to happen. Who imagined any of this was going to happen?
John, I'll just leave you with one last question here, and it comes from a fan. We were talking about how 5 teams have already committed for the 2020 season when we play. What about the other 3 teams and their players? Are they available for pickup for maybe a 1-year lease if possible? They want to know what's the options for those players if they want to play in 2020.
Yeah, that's still fluid as well. We've talked about that, and whether or not, because you don't have Americans, because you don't have imports, because you don't have players from other provinces, will the 5 teams that want to play, will they have enough players to fill out a roster? And that's a really good question. And that's really going to be question 1 for us next week. In the event we don't, and everybody says, hey, I got 13 or 14 guys, but there's 3 guys from Barrie and 4 from Kitchener and, a couple from Brantford that all want to play, I think we would consider giving players like that an opportunity to play in the 2020 season for another team. It would certainly, I can assure you, be on a 1-year loan basis. And when those teams come back in 2021, those players would revert back to their old teams. The league actually has a leave of absence policy, which is sort of what this is. This is a really unique environment, of course, but we have a leave of absence policy where if a team does not play, their players are available to other teams, but they do revert back to that team's property the following year. And I think that's what would be in play.
Sorry, John, we thank you. We just ran out of time, but we thank you for taking your time today, coming on with us, and just shining a little bit of light on the 2020 season, and obviously talking about Bobby Schnurr, a guy who passed away from cancer, but a big part of the IBL back in the 70s.
Yep. Thanks very much for having me. Great show. Thanks for doing it.
John Castor, the IBL commissioner, and back joining me, the London Majors broadcast duo of Dylan Baker and Noah Smith. And guys, after John's words, and we talked about expansion, I think everyone wants to know how this will play out going forward after this shortened 2020 season. But expansion only can be beneficial for an IBL league, especially right now with only 8 teams.
That's for sure. Expansion would be huge for the league in 2021, and it was super interesting to hear what John had to say about expansion, how it will benefit the league, and kind of shed some more light on the 2020 season if it does happen, because it was a little up in the air. Everything's up in the air right now, and it was good that John was able to share some details publicly of things that are going to be considered by the league in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. I'll add in onto that as well, Spencer. We're seeing questions all over about other leagues playing without fans, and I think John touched on it a little bit, although we didn't ask him. He would love to see the fans in the seats, and obviously that wouldn't happen without the blessings from health officials and politicians as well. That is obviously the goal, but I think moving forward, they might do whatever it takes to get baseball on the diamond.
Yeah, it's tough, and you also have to realize a lot of these teams are going to rely on fan admission prices, season tickets. It's tough to play in a league where they need those fans coming in. The American Hockey League, of course, just canceled their season, and with everything going up in the air, we don't really know. It is a go right now for July 1st, and one of those players who will be a part of the 2020 shortened season, Hamilton Cardinal, will be joining us next. That's Justin Gideon, one of the elite players in the IBL, and once he's ready, we'll bring him in and we'll talk to Justin Gideon about the 2019 season and his upbringing into the IBL. And Noah and Dylan, you both know him very well, a big player of the Hamilton Cardinals and the IBL as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. Justin's been in the league for several years, and he's been a very talented player in his time with the Burlington and Hamilton franchises. So we're very excited to get a chance to talk to Justin.
And just like that, Justin Gideon slides in wearing his Hamilton sweater. And Justin, welcome to the first ever IBL On Deck, and we thank you for taking your time to join us today. Oh, he's getting ready. There we go.
Hello.
There we go.
Sorry,
we can hear you.
I'm having some technical difficulty.
No, it's the first episode. Yep, we can hear you loud and clear. It's all good. You can hear us. That's all that matters.
Okay.
You can hear?
Cool.
Perfect.
Yep.
So, Justin, thanks for joining us. I was actually speaking with one of your coaches from Brock, Noah Anderson, today, and he mentioned to me to make sure to ask this question. He wanted to know what your favorite play in the outfield was. Was it going for the outfield assist, nagging a guy at home, or throwing a guy going back to second on a tagout play?
Oh, man. I got to say, throwing the guy out at first base from right field, that's always a big that's always fun for me. Just seeing the guy hit the ball, seeing that he gets a base hit, and then having it taken away, I find that that's very fun for me.
Fun for an outfielder, not for a hitter, that's for sure. And Spencer mentioned you went to Brock University. How important was Brock in your upbringing into the IBL?
Sorry, I'm having.
We'll try to get Justin. I don't know. He seems to be having technical difficulties on his end, but we could talk about him briefly for sure. Justin, of course, an outfielder for the Hamilton Cardinals, but you mentioned Dylan went to Brock and I talked to Noah, one of their coaches today, and he's just an all-around great baseball player, and you can rank him up there, probably top 10 player in the IBL for sure in 2019.
Definitely, and his stats certainly reflect his talent, as he's a phenomenal hitter and a great player on defense as well.
Absolutely. Add on to that. Justin's one of those guys where when you watch him play, he's a little bit different. He's a special player out there, a fantastic outfielder as well. A lot of times you'll find these outfielders average on defense. Justin is a fantastic defensive outfielder, and he adds a fantastic bat as well to that.
So I'll go back to what we were talking about the commissioner with expansion and what the IBL may look like. I don't know if you guys have thought about it, but what's your thoughts on the IBL and where it will be in the next 5 years?
Personally, I see the IBL expanding to 10 teams if two markets come forward. I think that it's a great idea to have an East and a West division to limit the travel, as John mentioned. Maybe have a couple of games between the teams in different divisions per season. But you know what? I think it's a great idea to expand the league, and it'll only increase league profits, league revenue, and the popularity in the province.
Yeah, to add to that as well, Spencer, it's a fantastic idea, and I think John knows that as well as the entire IBL executive committee to try and, more teams just creates a stronger league, and the IBL knows that. I think getting up to 10 teams would be a fantastic idea. A lot of fans are asking where these teams would go. Obviously, we don't know, and we wouldn't release that if we did. Just some names to throw around, though. Teams have been in Stratford before, Oshawa. Ottawa recently lost the baseball team they had, so they could be looking to get back in. Just some ideas of teams that could be looking to get back into the IBL.
And when you think about when you add 2 more teams to 10, would it change the playoff format? How would you, if you were the commissioner today, make changes to the IBL and the structure of the league?
I don't think it changes the playoff format too much. I think that one team in each division gets eliminated, and it's the same sort of thing. You would have, instead of reseeding after each round, you would have the East Division teams play each other first, the West Division teams play each other at the same time, and then we'll have a winner coming out of each division.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you get up to 10 teams, you keep that 8-team playoff. The IBL has played around a little bit with the length of their playoff series. That is the only thing that I could imagine they would maybe continue to play around with a little bit. Do they go best of 5? Do they go best of 7? I think obviously it values the league if they go up to a best of 7, but with that, you're going to have to add, maybe a couple of extra weeks onto the end of the season.
And Noah, I'll go right back to you, then I'll get Dylan's thoughts. But 2019, of course, the voice of the Jackfish. I was the voice of the Jackfish last year in our first year moving from Burlington to Welland. But what was your favorite memory or favorite game possibly of 2019 that you recalled that you were a part of or even witnessed?
Well, that's a good question. Me and Dylan had the pleasure of calling the majors games last year in our first season with the team, and there was so many great moments. I think one that Dylan, I might imagine, is going to say is one of his greatest memories from the season as well is the Cleveland Brownlee home run, his 100th in his career, which was a fantastic moment for him and great for us to call. And the excitement in the crowd that day was something that we didn't see the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say the exact same thing. That Canada Day game against Barrie was electric. The crowd was into it. Cleveland Brownlee hit his 100th career IBL home run. Mike Ambrose had his 200th career IBL hit. Another great game I loved was when we were actually in Welland on July 28th, and Majors won that game 12-9. It was such a crazy back-and-forth game. The Majors got off to a big lead. Welland came back, and then back and forth they went for the remainder of that ball game. And it was just a really, really fun game to watch and call.
So I'm being told from our producer, Ryan, that Gideon is back. So we'll try to get Justin back. And here he is. Back, ready to go?
Yeah, all good.
Dylan, I know you were talking about – perfect. I know Dylan had a question for you about Brock and how that helped in your upbringing into the IBL. So I'll go back to Dylan and get your thoughts on Brock and how it helped you.
Yeah, so Justin, how did going to Brock University help you get adjusted to the IBL and help bring you into the league?
Oh, a bunch of things. Just the professional attitude that Brock teaches. It was a really different culture from growing up playing minor league baseball. It was just kind of like a shock to the system almost to know like what professional baseball can be like. And so you really get accustomed to that. And also being around guys, Brock really brings in good players. They've had some ex-IBL guys who really took me under their wing, show me the right way to play the game, and just everything. Yeah.
Now, Justin, you've been in the league for a few years now. Do you have any great memories or a memory that really sticks with you from your time so far in the league?
Oh, this past season was one of my favorites. I think my favorite moment was winning my first playoff series against Guelph this season. That was the first playoff series I won in my IBL career. I think that was a great moment, just celebrating with the guys and knowing we could do big things.
Justin, take me back to that year when Hamilton started off okay, but then come July, watch out, all of a sudden they were on a roll. What changed and what made Hamilton basically superior going down the stretch in the 2019 season, rather?
When I signed with Hamilton, I've said this in private conversations before. They're one of those teams that has a young core group of guys, and they're one of those teams where you say, okay, they're at the bottom of the pack right now, but if they can keep their core group of guys together, they can really emerge as one of the top teams in the league. And usually, it's very rare for that to succeed and happen. Some guys go their own different ways. But with Hamilton, you see the core group of guys, a lot of local guys. They've really stuck together. And I'm fortunate enough to come into that a little bit later, but to help that group of guys, you really see that chemistry and everyone coming together. I think that's what really helped us once we got close during the season, and that's when we really took off.
Yeah, we saw the chemistry really start getting hot for you guys last year. Did you have a favorite guy to play with last season, or toughest guy to play against in your IBL career?
Specifically in Hamilton?
It doesn't matter wherever you've played.
It's really hard to say. I don't want to miss anybody, but I've had great moments with all my teammates. I've made some good friendships with them, lifelong friendships. It's tough to say exactly who. I don't know. It's tough, but going to your next question, toughest guys to play against. There's a lot of good pitchers in this league. My first couple years, it was very rare for me to go to the field and be not scared of the pitcher, but a little bit disappointed to see that, maybe I'm not going to have the greatest game today because this guy's really good, stuff like that. But now in my last 3 seasons, the league has just gotten so much better pitching. And every day there's no days off. There's no stat padding games. There's nothing. The league is just so good.
Justin, before you got on, we were talking to the IBL Commissioner, John Kastner. One of the many topics we talked about was expansion in the IBL. Are you open to that? And if so, what are some teams you'd like to see in the league?
Oh, well, I'm definitely open to it. Whatever helps the league reach new viewers, new fans. This is a great league, and if more people can get involved, that's a great thing. What I want to see get involved? That's a tough one. There's a lot of factors at play. I'd really love to see a team out east, like maybe Ajax. There's a great facility here, and I know Toronto's the furthest east right now, and I think maybe pushing out that way. I'm not sure what kind of player talent is out this way, but I think it would be great around here. Other than that, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure.
And now, how are you kind of staying in shape, knowing that July 1st possibility we could be throwing a baseball around? How are you staying in shape and basically social distancing, because that is the new norm here in 2020?
It's tough with no gyms available, no baseball facilities open. You can't play catch with your buddies. You can't throw to your buddies. So I've been just doing a lot of stuff by myself, going for runs, doing some body weight stuff, just I'm trying to do something every day to keep in shape. But yeah, it's been tough for sure.
It's tough for everyone right now, especially for athletes trying to stay in shape and get ready for a potential return whenever that may be. And, we touched on league expansion. Now, you were a member of the Burlington franchise for a long time, whether it was the Bandits or the Herd. What was that like for you when you were told that the franchise is going to relocate to Welland?
We kind of saw it coming. We were a very open organization. We knew kind of what was going on, like with the city of Burlington. Like we knew why relocation was the best fit for that organization, and so it was good for them for sure, to be able to relocate. And you can see it already. Like Welland, their fans are amazing. Like they've already done great things there.
And finally, I'm just going to wrap this up as we're somewhat closing in our little bit of time left, but I'm going to take you back to a play. You may know what video is coming, and maybe you could take us through this play. As you grin already, you might know what's coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, your post on Twitter says determination says it all, and you're absolutely right. And when I talked to Noah from Brock, he mentioned determination and he mentioned hustle. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more, even though you weren't able to catch that ball?
So this was opening day, my second season. Yeah, so this would be my second season in Burlington. Opening day, we were playing London. Cleveland Brownlee was up, and right before the pitch, they tell you to visualize making plays, and for some reason, I was taken back to this. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I made an amazing catch a year before, something similar to that, where it was a ball in foul territory, and I dove and made a spectacular catch. And for some reason, that crossed my mind, me making that catch. And then I saw the ball get hit in the air. So once that ball was in the air, I was determined to make that exact same play. And, sometimes it doesn't always work out. I think, it doesn't really help that there wasn't a warning track there either. But, it happens. And I was able to get up from it, thank God, but yeah.
Well, we thank you for coming on. Obviously, it's a tough time right now, but to be able to talk baseball even, it's a huge plus for all our fans, and we thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Anytime.
Justin Gideon, the Hamilton Cardinals, and yeah, that play, of course, there's so many plays we could highlight, but that one just had to come on, and I'm sure what a great way to end the first episode here on IBL On Deck.
For sure. Great play, great attempt at a play by Justin Gideon. Really shows who he is as a player, that hustle and determination, as you mentioned, Spencer. He's just that kind of guy. He's going to do everything he can to win ball games.
On the other side of things, sometimes you see guys who are just like, hey, don't show me that video. I don't want to relive that. Justin's living in it. He knows that his determination was fantastic, and he still gets a few laughs out of it to this day.
So we'll be back 2 weeks from now. We're going to do this show bi-weekly until the season goes, and that's when we'll go weekly for you with highlights. We'll get more players, more coaches, maybe bring some fans on as well. And if you have any comments or if you want to talk to any player, be sure to leave a comment below and drop a name, and we'll try to get that player on for you to ask that favorite question. But until next time, be sure to stay safe, stay healthy, and before you know it, the IBL will be back here in July, hopefully July 2020. Until next time, I'm Spencer Tangway, Dylan Baker, Noah Smith. We say thank you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.